Thank you, Mayor. So, thank you for all the comments this evening about CCA or CCE. I was the mayor in 2017 and brought this forward in the summer, just like two years ago now. And it actually just didn't go away. There was a number of things that came up around the time, and it wasn't. At that time, we were the only city really making noises about going forward. And I think what's happened in the last 2 years, it's given other cities a chance to go ahead and explore this. And I'd like to applaud Irvine for going all the way through. They took a lot of time, and they did a very thorough study. I'm going to read something at the moment, just for those at home who may not know what a CCA is. What is a CCA? Community Choice Aggregation that was authorized under AB 117 in the year 2002, and SB 790 in 2011 allows local governments, including counties and cities, to purchase electricity in the wholesale power market, sell it to its residents and businesses at a competitive rate as an alternative to electricity provided by investor-owned utility, IOU, that means Southern California Edison. CCA is not a municipal utility, as the IOU is, will continue to provide the transmission and distribution services, power line maintenance, and even customer billing. The goal of the CCA is to offer local public more choices, rate stability, and competitive rates. So one of the things that we noticed about the study that Irvine did is that a lot of the we are similar, though Irvine has more residents. We're a city that has residents, we have businesses, we have commercial, we have industrial. And a lot of the businesses that come to town, and one of the things they're constantly looking for is rate stabilization. There are currently 19 operational CCAs throughout the state. And there are studies underway currently in Laguna Beach, Lake Forest, Garden Grove, Orange, and Newport Beach. As I mentioned, Irvine City Council just approved their results, and the city is similar to ours in the sense of consumer classes. I mentioned residential, business, and commercial. One of the things I want to use as an example, if you recall, a couple of years ago, our city did a study on buying light poles. And, a lot of people kind of poo-pooed at that, but I want you to know that your city is saving. Our utility bills used to be $152,000 a month, and when we bought the light poles, and currently it's down to $37,000 a month. So the point I'm making is, I think the only way we're going to really find out if this is going to work for our city is to have a study. And if at the end of the study it doesn't make sense for us to do it, or the residents don't want it, then we can decide at that time. But I do believe that at the end of the day, as many of the speakers said, this will be a long-term investment in the city and give our city more power and control as we go in to the future with the state mandates requiring carbon neutral and things of that sort. So I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Carr, and you can put in your 2 cents.
Appreciate it. So this is a topic that I've been studying for about the past year, and there's been some misinformation said tonight about CCAs and CCEs, and this market is actually exploding. And just last year, 10 new CCAs came on board in California. There were 4 that came on board the year before that. So, Barbara, you're right. In 2017, Huntington Beach really was on the cutting edge of this. And since then, we've been able to sort of take a look back and step back and look at, does this make sense for us to continue to pursue? And the evidence is overwhelming that says we should really take a hard look at this. Irvine looked last September 2018. their council voted unanimously to approve a feasibility study. And I think that's something that's really important here, is that we're not saying, hey, let's go forward with a CCA or not. None of us up here can say it's a good thing or a bad thing because we don't have the data. And until we actually get that data, we cannot have that educated conversation. Whether we decide to partner with Irvine, or if we look at some of the other cities that are considering this, we need to have that data. But getting back to 2018, September 2018, when Irvine unanimously approved this feasibility study, it was quite interesting, the remarks that were coming out at that time, when at that time Mayor Don Wagner, who's now on the Orange County Board of Supervisors, he came out and he said, CCE is the wave of the future and Edison just needs to deal with it. And at that time, Mayor Pro Tem Christina Shea, who's now the mayor now, she said this is about cost savings, about having the best power to offer our residents. So I'm very pleased that we're moving forward in this direction. So the communities that have embraced CCAs are as diverse as California itself. There are CCAs in the high desert. There are CCAs in the high Sierra. Rancho Mirage has a CCA. Palm Springs and Cathedral City are looking at doing a CCA next year. Encinitas will be launching a CCA next year. Solana Beach has, you just go up and down the coast of California, inland, as I mentioned, the deserts. It's all over. And California is not unique in offering a CCA. There are actually 8 other states that offer this. And there are 7 more states that are looking at doing this. There are 10 million Californians that have the opportunity to look at a CCA. That's 1 in 4 Californians. And in nationwide, I believe that number, I had it somewhere, sorry. It's over 700 million. So some of the things that have been saying about, these are failing, that's not the case. No. And we've been able to see this up and down the coast. So tonight I'm asking you not to go, hey, we're going to go forward with a CCA, because we can't make that educated decision. We're asking for a feasibility study to see, will this provide rate stabilization for Huntington Beach residents? Will it provide more local control? Will we have the ability to reinvest in our own community? And also, we could possibly use this as a way to attract new business and retain the businesses that we have here, because we need to be competitive going forward. If other communities are offering lower energy rates and we don't have the opportunity to give our businesses a choice, we could look at losing them. So I don't know how choice is a bad thing in this. If you decide you want to stay with Southern California Edison, you have that opportunity. But right now, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. That's not what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about moving forward with a feasibility study so we can get the data and we can have an educated conversation.
Mr. Posey.
Yes, well, I clearly support embarking on the study. I supported collecting the data, getting the NDA signed so we could do that. Unfortunately, we never did take that next step. This is that next critical step. The business community embraces CCA. We're looking at adding 1 million square feet of Class A research and technology zoned industrial buildings on the Boeing campus site. What better way to attract business than to have a lower cost of energy? We actually have a CCA in town. Some businesses have the ability to buy energy direct from AES.
That's right.
One of those businesses saves about $3,000 a month on his electricity because he's his own CCA. For businesses that are coming to Huntington Beach that may be marketing towards renewable, sustainable, green, all of those metaphors that apply, being able to tell their customers that they buy 100% renewables when they can is going to be a marketing advantage for them. I know that because the business community has told me that. So we haven't embarked on a CCA yet. All we want to do is get the data to see if it's feasible. See if it's feasible after that. Does Huntington Beach do it on its own? Do we form a JPA? Do we partner with other cities? But it is successful. It's happened across the state started in Marin County, and I know I'm kind of repeating what everybody else said. But Councilman Carr reminded me that we actually have 40 million, because I was going to say 1/3, but it's actually 1 in 4, because we're 40 million, not 30 million. So I was thinking about the olden days, I guess. So anyway, I support it, clearly.
Ms. Del Glaze.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to comment, and you and Mr. Posey, you said it, but at the end of our study, we may find out that we could partner with Irvine, or even better yet, how great would it be? There's 34 cities in our county. Suppose a lot of them decided to do a JPA. That would be a really great way to lift Orange County. So that was just my comment. I thought JPA or staying on our own, but the fact that other cities are getting these studies too, I think is really a positive thing.
Ms. Sameta.
So I think what you just said is so relevant, Ms. Del Glaze, in terms of what if other cities wanted to do this? Why are we going forward ourselves first? That's what I want to know. Why would we not?
Sure.
Well,
We're
let
not.
me finish, if you
I'm
don't
sorry.
mind. Yeah, and then I'll have you answer.
Okay.
Why would we proceed forward with this cost now on our own when perhaps other cities are looking at it? Why would we do the expense when, if we're thinking about doing this, and I'm not necessarily in support of it, I need to know a lot more first before I could ever, come to that decision. And it sounds like hopefully the others are open-minded as well, but that it doesn't make any sense to me that we would go forward ourselves with spending. And my next question is, what's the cost of doing a feasibility study right now? Does anybody have the answer to that? Yeah.
Let me take the first part. I think the reason.
Kim is next.
Go ahead, Ms.
I'll do
Kim.
that.
Thank you. I wanted to clarify a couple of things, but I can do that. I have the information that I didn't have at the top of my head before. But as far as the feasibility study, we don't have an official RFP yet, because we wanted to get a pulse from the council to make sure that this may be something that we wanted to go forward with or not. But based on the conversations that we've had, we could roughly get this done for around $60,000, which is a lot less than what you were talking about 2 years ago when it was over $100,000. So Irvine spent $77,000 on their feasibility study, and if we chose to go with that same company, although we'd have to send an RFP out to make sure that we get the most competitive bid, we are getting estimates around $60,000.
Right.
And we do have funds set aside to do this.
I wasn't quite done, if you don't mind me finishing up. Yeah. So you said $100,000 is what Irvine spent?
No, Irvine spent $77,000 in 2017.
Okay.
When this came before the council, it was around $100,000.
Okay. So, I guess that's one of my concerns. And the other thing is that from what I'm hearing from talking to people in the industry, this really is, CCAs are more of, they're not about financial benefits. They're about environmental benefits. And so I think we need to be very transparent and open with the public about that if we make this decision, policy-wise to go forward at some point, we're not expecting rates to go down for our consumers. That is not really what it's about. From what I'm understanding, what other communities that are doing CCAs, if they are seeing savings, those savings are going back into purchasing upgrading facilities, or maybe going into disadvantaged communities to helping them with their, energy bills or whatever. So it's what I want to be really clear on is, should we can ratepayers in our city expect to pay less on their bills? And I think the answer to that is no. I really do. Maybe that will change at some point, but do we, and I don't know if either one of you can answer this or if anybody else can. Okay, great. Well, let me.
Let me
just finish this next one, and that is there any documented savings for any other where ratepayers are seeing a lower cost on their own bills?
Yes.
Yes, there are. And we can be happy to provide you with a litany of information about that. Irvine, when they put together their feasibility study, they put together the most conservative estimates, and they estimated rate savings to be around 2%. So it's more than just rate savings. That is something that that is certainly top of mind, but it's also the ability to reinvest in your community. So communities like Pico Rivera specifically went forward with this because it's an impoverished community. I can't speak tonight, sorry. But the point is that they were looking at ways that they could offer a lower cost to their residents and reinvest in their community. So they partnered with Lancaster, and they were able to make this happen. So we can get you that information, but again, that comes down the road. Again, I don't want to put the cart before the horse here and saying we're going to go forward with a CCA, because you need to have that feasibility study that would look at those things, that what are the savings that the consumers and the businesses would get. And then from there, start to drill down and see if it makes sense, if the energy portfolio that you're looking at makes sense for you. So there's a lot of reasons why you would go for it. A rate savings is only one aspect of it.
Ms. Del Glaze.
Thank you. Yes, rate savings is one. There will be some people who will sign up because it's environmental, for sure. I would say the number 3 one is money coming back into our community, generating jobs. And I think once the study's done, it will be able to show you, you'll see that. Did you have a chance to review the Irvine report that was sent to all of us?
You know, I did, Barbara, and that brings up a really good point for me, which is why not wait to see what they do next? They have next steps planned, from what I understand from reading that study. Let's see what they decide when they go to the next steps. Maybe, if it's all looking wonderful, Huntington Beach could jump onto what they're doing, because I'm imagining they're going to want to be a JPA or whatever. They're probably
not necessarily. And the reason why I'm responding is that we have to have our own study. We can't just jump on theirs without a study. We have to have our own study. And then if we choose to partner with them going forward, this thing, it's not going to happen overnight. It takes a year.
Ms. Hardy.
Yeah, one of the comments I saw from the public, and I didn't count, but it seemed kind of evenly split between support and opposition. But one of the opposition comments that stood out to me was that they thought this issue was dead. And the reason I reacted to that was because I thought, after we discussed this 2 years ago, that it was coming back to us, and it hasn't. So first of all, thank you to Councilmember Carr and Del Glaze for bringing this back to us. Because I still have a lot of questions myself, and I see the feasibility study as answering a lot of those questions, a lot of the questions that came from the public, which I am keeping track of, but not asking tonight, because if it's not answered in the feasibility study, I want to be able to ask those questions if I still have them. As far as environmental versus economic, since one of my final classes for my bachelor's in economics was on environmental economics, and I can't believe that 25 years later, don't do math, that society isn't seeing the benefit, the economic benefit to environmental decisions. And so this possibly could be one that merges environmental benefits as well as economic benefits. Perhaps. I would like to see the feasibility study to see how that works out, and specifically how it works out for Huntington Beach. I do understand that, it's nice when another city, especially a similar city like Irvine, is ahead of the game, so we can kind of watch what they're doing. But I also think that they're far enough ahead of us that we can start looking into it and seeing if it's for us. And I also understand that Huntington Beach is not Irvine in so many wonderful ways, and that we would need our own feasibility study specific to our community. So I'm going to be supporting that, the idea of continuing on with the feasibility study that I thought I supported 2 years ago. So, but it was a study session, so I guess we couldn't officially do anything anyway. So again, thank you, ladies, for bringing this back.
Mr. Brendan.
Yeah, I recall also 2 years ago supporting this and thinking it was coming back, but I'm glad that we had 2 years of experience, because that was my concern at that time, and it still remains my concern. I want to see what is happening in the areas where they have adopted this, because the promise of saving ratepayers money is always something that we should pursue. We should not ignore that possibility. I think I'm certainly not ready to say I'm ready to push forward on this, because I do need more information, and that's what this study will give us. It'll give us a body of evidence and facts that we can really formulate a good decision from. There's also this question about local control, and I've heard some people argue that, my God, we don't want to let our city council make the decision. Let's let the PUC make the decision. Let's let Southern California Edison make the decision. I don't know. I've always been pretty much a local control person. I think we all are, and so this may offer some additional level of local control. But I think, again, the study will reveal all the details in that regard. So I'll be supporting this. The other thing I want to ask for confirmation on, I believe this is the way it works, if a city does choose to go to a community choice energy program, if a ratepayer goes on to the CCE, they have the option of selecting their renewable energy level in their portfolio. So they can personally opt for a portfolio that's 100% green, and they will pay more.
That's right.
And some people want to do that, and they're willing to pay that. But others will say, no, I want the most affordable, the lowest bill. Yeah, and then at the end of the day, if CCE or CCA is not something that the ratepayer likes, they can go back to Southern California Edison. So I think those are, compelling thoughts. But again, I think the study will reveal a lot and help us to make an informed decision. So I'll be supporting the motion tonight.
Okay, so Ventura, everyone's pulling out of that CCA. Their bills actually went up, so it didn't work out for them. Currently, the PUC is reviewing if the IOUs that the electric company, you still charge for the transportation and everything, right? They're reviewing those rates, and they are going to raise them by 2020. They don't know what the rate is. So if you get into a long-term contract right now, that rate could put you upside down. That's an issue. It's nice to think that you can go, I want 100%, I want 60%, I want 20% green energy or something. You know what you're getting? Fossil fuels, no matter what. All we're doing is subsidizing. I think I'm the only electrician on this board. If you tell me that outlet is green and that outlet over there isn't, it's not. The electrons aren't magic. We don't get the magic green from the solar farms and bring them down here. We don't have batteries collecting them, bringing them down, and adding them to the grid here. So we are using credits to go out there. They get a little star on their wall saying, hey, I have used energy credits. And we can say, okay, well, we bought X amount of energy credits from this wind farm. That just goes into the grid. So all you're doing is subsidizing an industry that's already very subsidized, and I'm worried that when that industry isn't subsidized, what's going to happen to these CCAs when you have long-term contracts? When we had that study session, the proponent of it equated it to Enron. Actually, yes, go look at the video. He said yes, it was like Enron, which is the same thing. You're buying and selling energy credits. Julie, you had that slide? So this is San Diego. That is the cost to start their JPA. These are the costs, after the feasibility study. This is what their cost. The one-time cost, the CCA, not a JPA. This is just the CCA. So if you extrapolate that out with, taking the population of Huntington Beach, we could pay anywhere, it's about $29.4 million. Where are we going to get that money? Most of these CCAs, they bond for the money to get it started. And right now we have a police station that needs repair. We have employees we need. We have all this stuff. We have unfunded liabilities. And we're going down this road where we can potentially have to be, starting a new layer of government. Again, if for me, I just don't like the fact that it's like you're lying to people. You're saying, oh, you're getting green energy, but you're not. You're getting it from Southern California Edison right there. They are not bringing the electrons from the desert into here. It's just, it can't go through the grid like that. So And it also bothers me that, like Marin County, they've been around forever. $50 million they have there. To me, that's overtaxation. They have $50 million in their bank account. So, you're charging too much. And they might be, some people saving money, but they're not putting that, they're not giving that back to the ratepayer. They're not doing anything like that. So I'm worried about the feasibility study. The last person they wanted to hire for the feasibility study is now works for a consultant that consults CCAs. How are we going to get a non-bias feasibility study? Because all the organizations that do these things want you to be in a CCA. I mean, the only people making money off this are the lobbyists, the lawyers, and the politicians. It's just, I see it as another layer of government. If you do have choice right now, you can go down, you can get solar, you could put it on your building, you could put it in your house. It's subsidized. If you're a large enough customer, like Mr. Posey alluded to, you can go right to the power companies and get special tiered rates. So there's just so many concerns, and you guys want the feasibility study. I've actually been looking at this for the last 2 years and watching these things, and it's like the same exact cookie cutter thing that they bring in. And you look at this, what was the other city? That's San Diego. There was Inland Power Choice, nearly $200 million for their startup. So this is money that has to come from somewhere, and I mean, it's inevitable. Even if they say, oh, yeah, it's feasible, now you have to set it up. That's what you're setting up. So I have issues with this. I figure if Irvine's starting them, let them start it, let them see it. If you want to join it, maybe they paid a lot of the costs up front, or there's the residents can join by themselves. I never like anything that's so good that everyone has to get into it. And these are everyone that comes is everyone's automatically opt-in and you have to opt out. So those are my concerns with it. Ms. Carr?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of things, and I appreciate that, you bring up the point that if you want to participate in green energy, you can put solar panels on your home, but that only applies to people who own their home and can afford to do that. So if I'm a renter, I wouldn't have that opportunity. And the most people, there's a huge portion of our community
You're still not
that
getting
wouldn't
green
be.
energy.
I'm still speaking. Thank you.
Yeah, well.
So the other thing I just wanted to clarify, because I mentioned it before, I wanted to make sure that I have the record straight of states that are a part of the CCA that do allow these to happen right now. There are 8 states in the United States that allow you to do this: Illinois, New York, Ohio, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Virginia. And there are, as I mentioned, 7 additional states that are looking at doing this in the future. There are over 750 communities that are taking advantage of this opportunity. And as I said earlier, over 160 communities here in California that are participating in giving their residents a choice.
Ms. Toglaze.
Thank you. I just wanted to read from my notes here. How is this not an Enron scam? CCAs were designed and developed after the energy deregulation crisis. There was a safeguard built into the program design. For example, only allowing CCAs to manage the energy supply versus allowing anyone to purchase energy from anywhere or anyone. CCAs have to submit their plans to the California Public Utilities Commission. In the Enron situation, the market had free reign in California with zero regulation from the state. Thus, market manipulation ran rampant. And then also some of the comments, I don't know some of the numbers that you were throwing around about, if there's $50 million in this account or that account. Again, that's why it comes back to having the feasibility study. If it doesn't make sense for us to do it, then we won't do it. But I just think there's so many pressing, encouraging thoughts, good solutions for us as a city to do it. So,
Mr. Posey.
Well, we've heard the word choice quite a few times, and that actually, for me, is the most important aspect of community choice aggregation, because it is about choice. And when you have the ability to choose between an investor-owned utility and a community choice aggregation, community choice energy, you actually have a choice of who you buy energy from. If you don't have a CCA, you don't have a choice. You have a monopoly. And when Councilman Carr mentioned renters, homeowners that are not homeowners that can't put solar panels on, our business community that rent industrial buildings cannot do the same either. And if we have an option and an advantage over a neighboring city in that we have either a lower cost of energy or a more menu-driven energy supply that allows them to choose 100% renewables or a portion of renewables that suits their investors and their shareholders' goals and desires, that gives us a leg up. I mean, we're going to have 1 million square feet to fill on the Boeing campus. Wouldn't it be great if businesses that were looking at Huntington Beach said, hey, they've got a CCA, and we're not even there yet. I mean, what we're looking at is embarking on a study to give this body the choice of going forward with it or not. And if we don't do the study, we don't have the data, we can't make the decision. To not study it, to not make the decision is not good governance. It's burying your head in the sand. And I think that I've supported this, and I know that for 2 years I've been talking to Councilman Del Glaze about it, and our previous city manager, and Councilman Carr about it, and I'm excited that they got it on the agenda, and I support it. I wish I could vote for it twice.
Ms. Sameta.
So I'm going to borrow a phrase from Ms. Hardy that I can count votes. However, I'm still going to make a request from my colleagues up here, and that is, before we vote tonight to go forward with the feasibility study, can we at least come back one more time, have staff research, and give us documented proof that somebody is actually saving money as a ratepayer, whether that's businesses or residents? Because I haven't seen it. And we're spending money on a feasibility study possibly here tonight. So before we spend that money, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, whatever it turns out to be, can't we at least make sure that that's a possibility? Because again, and I'm going to, Mr. Posey, you and I both talk about this, but you more than myself, and that is it good policy to make decisions based upon social issues or whatever? In other words, with CalPERS, you're very upset, and I am too, by the fact that they're not making the returns they should make because they're making decisions based on social policy, social justice, not investing in certain types of, divesting from tobacco or whatever. This can really be likened to that. We're talking about clean energy versus financial decisions that make sense. And then again, just the huge risk of the money that Mr. Posey Mayor Peterson talked about that would go into should we decide to proceed forward. So again, before we spend the money for this study, let's at least come back with proof that it's possible for our residents and our business owners to save money. I haven't seen it, and I haven't seen it, I'd love to see that before we go to the next step.
Ms. Del Glaze.
My understanding of the point was to bring this forward so we could have staff look into it. And you're assuming in your comment that there's only one benefit, and that's environmental. And that is not the case. No. That's what you were alluding to, that like Mr. Posey, and I feel the same way about CalPERS. I don't want them just investing that way. If that were the only way they were doing this, I might feel that way. It's not. Like Mr. Brendan said, some people are going to invest in it because it is environmental. No question about it. Mm-hmm. Others are going to do it because they save money.
And that's what I want to see. That's all I'm saying is I want to see
part of the reason I know
that
is because I've been studying it. I'm happy to give you the materials I have, and you're welcome to go through it. I'd like to move on here. We've been asking. Okay.
Mr. Posey.
It's the pursuit of the feasibility study for the CCA. The proof of moving forward isn't just saving money. It's saving money. It's offering a choice. It's offering renewables, and it could be an attractant to business because of having the ability to buy renewables. So it's not just about saving money. Saving money is one of the benefits. If you want to study, I mean, I've read the CCAs on Irvine, Marin, Alameda County. There are, I don't know how many of them, 19 or more in California alone. They're all just doing just fine. And it's about choice.
Does an individual ratepayer save money, or an individual business? Do you have that? Because we can't use Irvine because they haven't done it yet, but one that's actually done it.
If that was the only measure of success, I don't know that that's true, but it probably is. I mean, it certainly is, and it's proven in Irvine's case, and it's proven with my own industrial customers' case. So, saving money.
Mr. Brendan?
So if I understand the item that's being proposed tonight, it's not to approve a contract with for a study. It's to direct staff to move forward and obtain, issue an RFP and obtain bids. Why can't we move that forward with the request to also bring back a report from staff of findings about research into how this has played out for ratepayers in areas where it's been adopted? And to me, that's a reasonable request from Councilwoman Mayor Pro Tem Semeta, because that has been my question all along. Are we going to save money? Because if we are, I'm compelled to move forward. But knowing whether or not there's been any evidence of that, I think it's a reasonable request. So I think that that's how we should move forward with this, as it's proposed, but with the additional requirement that staff bring back some data for us.
Mayor?
I would also like to find out who can give me the physics on how we get the energy here, because it doesn't come here. You're saying choice. You're choosing to subsidize an industry. That's fine, but you're not getting that industry's power. Not in Huntington Beach. We're getting it from AES. So the whole choice, you're just choosing. I mean, we have to be very clear on this. You're choosing to say, I want to add X amount to the grid, but I'm not getting that. So it's a lie. And it's not a choice. I mean, they can choose, make them feel good that they think they're getting energy, solar energy or wind energy, but they're not. It's not part of it. I mean, it's part of it. It goes into the grid, but we don't get it here. Ms. Delglaze?
Thank you. Mr. Brendan, I like your idea. I just didn't want to delay it. I have no problem adding that to the H item, having the staff bring back some things, so Ms. Semeta can appreciate that. I just didn't want to delay it another month and do that. I think it's time to go ahead and approve it, and then ask them to bring back, when they do the RFPs, that brings to us, then they can show it.
Ms. Hardy?
If the contract is more than $50,000, which it sounds like it will be, it'll have to come back to the council to approve the contract anyway. That would be an appropriate time to bring more information.
Ms. Carr? Or Mr. Posey, sorry.
It's already been answered, thanks.
Ms. Carr?
Well, actually, the request tonight was to direct the city manager and public works director to complete a community choice energy feasibility study and then report it back to city council. So it sounds as though you don't want to complete the study. That's what we're here asking for tonight, is to complete the study to allow us to move forward, and that way we can have the information and have that conversation.
Mr. Brendan?
Yeah, I see that moving forward. I mean, I don't know that I could vote for the recommended action as I look at it again, because it's basically asking us to complete a study without knowing what the cost is. And so it's got to come back to us anyways. So why not just change the recommended action to bring back, issue the RFP and bring back the cost, and at that time also the data. It's still, I don't think it changes the timeline, because once you get the contract and you approve it, instead of making it 6 months, make it 5 months, bring it back.
Ms. Delglaze?
Mr. Brennan, I was okay with that, and because I think that's going to answer. We have the study coming back. It's done after there's been a RFP, and then those other things can be answered at that time. So I don't know. Ms. Carr may want to have. You may not. I don't know.
No, I mean, if what you're saying is we issue the RFP and then we're coming back with the RFP to get the additional money, that's what you're basically saying at this point.
Look, I feel so confident in this that that when the RFP comes back and there are some examples of savings and investment and job growth and all those kind of things, I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. I can do it either way.
Right.
Mr. Posey?
If we're going to send out an RFP and request information back, what information is it that you don't have that you want? Is it just the economics? Because that's kind of a monodimensional report, and it doesn't support why you have a CCA or why you should pursue a CCA. This isn't about just economics, even though that's part of it.
Mr. Brendan?
I think that some of the questions that have been raised by Mayor Pro Tem Semeta warrant exploration. I see no reason in bringing more information back. It's not delaying the process. We're not standing in the way of a study being done. All we're saying is let's make sure that we have as much information as we possibly can have at our disposal when we decide to spend the money. I don't know how much we're spending.
What information, though? More information isn't more information. More information is a blanket statement.
What I was referring to was the specific question that Mayor Pro Tem Semeta posed.
The only question she had was economics.
Mike, let him finish.
She asked the question, are there any examples out there what's happening in other communities where this has been adopted? And the specific question is, are ratepayers able to reduce their bill? I want the answer to that question.
Ms. Semeta?
So, Ms. Delglaze and Mr. Brennan, I really appreciate that because I think it's important to have that answer. So I'm going to go ahead and make a substitute motion at this point that we have staff.
I think it's the original motion. I don't think there's been a motion.
It's a substitute because we're not proceeding straight forward to order.
No, there was no
study.
motion.
Oh, okay. So I'm making a motion. Thank you. I understand now. So my motion is that, no, actually, I don't want to make that motion. You go ahead and make that motion. Would you?
I'm having some technical difficulties here, but
I could try to help if that's.
that would be great. I think you know what
I think so.
what we're trying to achieve here.
So it would be direct the city staff to issue a request for proposals and bring back the responses, actually to analyze the responses and bring back a recommended contract to you. At the same time, we would bring back the cost information that the Mayor Pro Tem asked, which specifically is where, let's say in our region, the Southern California, Northern California region, residents and businesses were able to see rate reductions, and what were those reductions?
That is my motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Brendan, second by Hardy.
Yes, Hardy.
Ms. Semeta?
I just want to make it very clear that with this motion, we will not proceed to actually issuing the study until that next meeting when we all vote again on whether to do so, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
You would be at that meeting either authorizing or not authorizing the contract
Right.
that made the study occur.
Okay, thank you.
So we're changing what it was originally, just for the, yeah, okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
The motion passes 6-1. Mayor Peterson voting no.
Okay, on the council member comments. Mr. Posey.
Yes, I just wanted to also comment on Huntington Beach Fire Engine 48, the accident. I spoke to Justin Fleming today, and they saw it coming, and the engineer gassed it and was able to get about 6 feet further through the intersection, saving lives potentially, and certainly saving more serious injury. The unfortunate part is that the driver that hit him hit the expensive plumbing part of the fire engine, causing some extensive damage. The good news is all 4 firefighters are back to work, a little bit bruised and beaten up. And the other good news is that there is a new fire engine on order, and it'll be arriving in about a month. And we have a backup, so we're going to still remain in service. So thank goodness that it was not as bad as it could have been. Justin spoke to me about another fire engine accident. I forgot what city it was in, where a motorcycle hit the cab and put the engineer in the hospital and rehab for months and months and months. So, and then with that, closing comments, U.S. Open Saturday and Sunday, epic as usual. Actually more epic because we had actual waves this year. It was a lot of fun, and the Surfing Walk of Fame inductee reception at Pacific City was better this year than last year. I think there were 300 and something people. Mr. Herbell, how many were there? 300 or 400? 425. Wow. I was wrong, 425. It was incredible. A lot of fun, a lot of great conversations, and got to saw all the surfing royalty and rub elbows with them. So, and that's all.
Ms. Hardy.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank all of the city staff involved with the U.S. Open. We do so many big events, and this is, of course, one of the biggest ones, and thoroughly enjoyed it, but only because of all the efforts of our city staff who support the event promoters themselves. So thank you, and congratulations to all the Walk of Fame and Hall of Fame inductees, and the winners of the contest, of course.
Ms. Sameta.
Thank you, Mayor. So let's see. I attended the PCTA mediation with the city attorney and staff, and I think we have things worked out, which is great. I was on 7/19. I also stopped in at the Harbor Commission that day to welcome the State Lands Commission, who was there to present to the Harbor Commission, which was wonderful. They're still learning about jurisdictional issues and so forth and what we might be able to do in that area. I was happy to provide the city's commendation to John Patterson of Huntington Beach Mazda for his grand reopening of the Huntington Beach store on Beach Boulevard. And I also want to congratulate them on receiving the top in the country for customer satisfaction for Mazda. So we're very proud of your success and that you make Huntington Beach your home for your business. So I'm not going to say much about the Surfing Walk of Fame or Hall of Fame and Open because it's been talked about, but it really was phenomenal all weekend long. And thank you so much to all of the staff and all of your hard work. It's just a gargantuan effort, and you do a great job. So thank you to HSS and Jax as well for that. What else? I went with, the mayor and I did it separately, but we were part of a discussion, if you will, through Visit HB and looking at whether the benefits and that we might have from hosting the Olympics here for surfing and skate, and that could be really wonderful, but we've got to look at all of that. So we were part of that discussion, which was very interesting. Let's see, what else? I already mentioned, or actually Patrick mentioned PCTA, our last meeting. I'm very excited that we have taken over, and I hope that you like some of the changes you saw tonight on the screen. You're going to keep seeing even more of that as we go forward. And I really, again, we want to hear your ideas for what you want for programming. So that's all I'll say for now. Thanks.
Ms. Carr.
So a little bit of an echo. I couldn't agree more with everything that you said about the U.S. Open and the Walk of Fame and the Hall of Fame. And just a real big shout out to Marie Knight, Chris Cole, Kelly Fritzl, Chief Handy. I mean, every day, you guys were there every single day, putting in 12-hour days. And I've attended that event since I was a teenager, and this year was by far the best. It was just orchestrated so beautifully and without a hitch. So kudos to all of the hard work that everybody put into that. I know that's very difficult. So in addition to going to the U.S. Open, I also had the opportunity to go to the OC Fair, which is another huge event going on in Orange County. I went to the Board of Directors dinner, and if you haven't had a chance to go to the fair, it's not quite as cool as the U.S. Open of surfing, but it is open until August 12th. And I also had the opportunity to go to the Dinner to Benefit Every 15 Minutes, which we all know is a charity here in Orange County that does a lot of drug and alcohol education awareness for the high schools. So thank you.
Ms. Delglaze.
Thank you, Mayor. I ditto everybody. It really was a spectacular celebration here in the city for surfing. And then I would just like to thank the mayor and Councilmember Brendan for coming out and honoring Diana Abascato, the lady that puts the pickleball tournament together. It was a great success again this year, sold out, and she had a big waiting list. So Diana, thank you for your contributions to the city of Huntington Beach.
Mr. Brendan.
So I'm not going to repeat anything that anyone else has spoken about. In the interest of brevity, I'm sure you appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. But I did have the honor of being present for a large group of volunteers at the Bolsa Chica Ecological Reserve. On July 27th, we had approximately 200 volunteers from the Pacific American Volunteer Association. They come out every year and help out there at the Bolsa Chica, and they do great work. Also wanted to mention an upcoming event that everyone is invited to because it's a free event at Bolsa Chica State Beach on August 31st. That's the Saturday of Labor Day weekend. From 11 to 5, it is the Labor of Love Festival, which features Christian music and lots of booths of people showing off the things that they sell and the services that they provide in the community. A lot of nonprofit people out there. And then finally, just one last thought. We have seen some horrific active shooter incidents this past week and a half. So I just want to ask that we close in memory of the victims of the shootings in El Paso and Ohio and in Gilroy, and that we pray for their families and strength and comfort to them. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to touch on Diana. You said we were out there, and Patrick, thank you for going out there. Talk about someone who's passionate about her sport. Oh my gosh, she is all about pickleball, and boy, does she promote it, love it. I mean, it's like a family out there. It was wonderful to see. I suggest I think it's Worthy Park they go hang out. Yeah, go over to Worthy Park and get a lesson. It looked fun. As Mayor Pro Tem said, we did get interviewed by a group that's looking at the feasibility of Huntington being in the 2028 Olympics. And I just wanted to share a perspective from the interviewer that was talking to me on the benefits and the risks of having it here at Huntington. He told me, he said, I came here once, he's from the South, came here once when he was 17. And he said he spent the day, and then he had left, and he worked for L.A. to get the L.A. Olympics here. He said when he came down to Huntington, he walked around, and all those feelings that he had when he was 17 of this is California came running back to him. And he said, you don't even need the Olympics. He goes, you are California. He goes, when I sold L.A., I sold the hell out of Huntington Beach, and I called it L.A. because you are the California experience. And he had nothing but good things to say about our city. He says it's developed a little more than when I was here, but how you're still this, this community by the beach, and it's refreshing, and don't lose it. He goes, LA lost it. We go up to LA, and he goes, I couldn't sell LA. I couldn't sell Santa Monica. I couldn't sell Torrance. I sold Huntington Beach and called it LA. So just so everyone out there, you live in a magnificent place. I mean, when you have people that says, if you have the Olympics, you have them, but you don't need them. You're that good. It was refreshing to hear that from someone who does this, sells cities all over the world. That's all he does, is market for the Olympics. So other than that, all the surfing was great. Again, to our staff, it was wonderful. We did have one more Eagle Scout, Daniel Henke. Daniel Henke. I attended his Eagle Court. It's always great. It was 2 years after he made his Eagle, so which happens sometimes. But really active troop. A lot of Eagles came out. So we are going to now recess back into closed session.